Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnanana Salakya Chakshurun Vitamyana Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pasyachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so I want to begin using Satsvarup Maharaj's book called Remembering Srila Prabhupada, which is a book. It is basically the Lilamrita, but it's on rhyme and many poems about about Srila Prabhupada, and in this way catching his whole life. So I'm just looking where to start. Okay, Australia. The land of the Malachas. Someone is not on mute. Please turn on your mute. Mute. Check at the bottom of Haribo. Please check at the bottom of your screen and set yourself on mute. Hare Krishna. That would be nice. All right. Australia, the land of the Malachas. May 9, 1971. After surrendering, they were no longer Malachas, but some of the bad habits remained. So Prabhupada wondered. He had carried Radha Krishna on the airplane for the Sydney ISKCON temple. But when he got there, no one knew how to cook or how to make a Brahmin thread, and they didn't keep the backyard clean. But they worshipped his person as they had worshipped his order. On his word, they'd gone to the streets, getting arrested and put into jail for chanting and giving out his magazine. They were ready for that, not about to give it up just because it was hard. Therefore, he taught all he could within a few days and prayed to Lord Krishna to send as Archa Vigraha. Please turn it on mute. The non-devotee Australian public who knew nothing at all about Krishna were receptive to hearing from Prabhupada in various halls and schools, and so he blessed the entire land of devotees and Malachas, the former prison colony of England, another of the many meat-eating republics of Kali, making it a tirtha of Lord Krishna. A meat-eating republic of Kali, making it a tirtha of Lord Krishna. That's quite nice. I liked in this particular poem, I like the point how the contrast between what devotees were before Krishna consciousness and how they possibly were still lacking in Vaishnava culture. But on the other hand, they were ready to take great risks. They were ready to go to jail because that's what it was. Chanting in the street and giving out magazines were strictly forbidden, and people were actually arrested and put into jail. And it used to be like that anyway, more often in many countries. So like that, it's interesting to see, although the devotees were new and maybe not fully capturing the refinement of culture. If you look at Krishna consciousness today, there is so much more knowledge, actually. Now we have so many more books, we have so many more lectures, so many more instructions about what is Vaishnava behavior and so on, what the entire Vaishnava culture is. Whereas in an earlier ISKCON, when the books were not translated, and life was more simple. Even when I began in Krishna consciousness, it was different than it is now. It was like all the clothes would just go into the laundromat, and when they came back, people would just take something. Right? You didn't even have your own clothes. You just take something from the pile. That was the brahmacharya ashram. So in this way, it was a different time, a different place. But devotees were ready for Prabhupada to make a sacrifice. And that spirit of making sacrifice, that was very, very strong. Prabhupada somehow or other managed to instill this in devotees. Because of his extraordinary surrender, his disciples also imbibed that spirit. And because of his dedication to a preaching mission, that became just the predominant spirit. And of course, all his followers were young. And of course, most of his followers were single. And of course, so being missionaries was a natural thing. Prabhupada was ready to go anywhere in the world, and he went to Australia. He went, the next poem is about Moscow. Visit to Moscow. No one really knew what he did in Moscow until he returned and told us. I received a letter from the Moscow hotel, which didn't tell much of Russia, but assured me that selling Back to Godhead magazine was more important than selling incense. Even in his Moscow room, Prabhupada was everywhere. He entered Russia. They went as tourists, and the governments carefully restricted their movements. He went because he wanted to preach. He wasn't naive or working for the CIA. He knew he had a right. When I asked in Australia why he had come, he said, the governments have made demarcation, but we see everywhere as the land of Krishna. His contact was also good. Indology professor G.G. Kotovsky, department head of Indian and South Asian Studies, USSR Academy of Sciences. They had exchanged several letters, and the professor had said he would talk with the Swami if he visited Moscow. With these plans in mind, Prabhupada had flown Air India from Bombay to Moscow. Let us see, was his attitude. They passed through immigration, although a holy picture of Krishna fell from Shamasundar's book. At the Hotel National, Prabhupada found no cooking acceptable for a Vaishnava. Aravinda managed to use the maid's kitchen, but food was hard to find. If a country doesn't believe in God, has no rice or fruits, and for a very high price provides a small, dingy room, and you cannot speak as you like, then what kind of paradise is that? So Prabhupada was ready to try every opportunity. This morning, I was also speaking from remembering Srila Prabhupada in my not morning, actually at 1 o'clock, from 1 to 2, and it just showed then that Prabhupada began, and in the beginning, just very, very few people taking interest, and those who took interest were not so serious, even if they attracted some people. And in that way, we see that Prabhupada encountered the same that we are encountering. When we approach people, it is also the big challenge. We can attract some people, but how can we get these people to make actually a serious commitment? That is always a big challenge. Prabhupada had no difficulty because Prabhupada just didn't give up. He just kept on cultivating, and some would come through. Not that many, but Prabhupada's perseverance was his wonderful quality. Besides his own, besides his own, how shall I say, dedication. So Prabhupada tried, and now he tried in Moscow. And of course, Shamasundar met this boy, and the boy asked if he had some Beatle records, and Shamasundar said no, but I have the guru of the Beatles here in a hotel. Well, that was interesting. So they brought back, he brought back these boys, and it became a very serious discussion, and they just absorbed. They absorbed everything. And Ananta Shanti became Prabhupada's disciple. Ananta Shanti just really was the person who took it and who just started at a great risk to preach Krishna consciousness in Russia. Now in Vrindavan, there is a samadhi of Ananta Shanti because Ananta Shanti has left this world. But undoubtedly, Prabhupada has taken him back to Godhead for that particular service, which is an important point, that we don't have to be perfect, but if we are making a special effort for his divine grace, then undoubtedly, then Prabhupada will take us back, right? Then that will be enough. Krishna will recognize, oh yes, you have done all this for Srila Prabhupada. Oh yes. So this morning I entered my lecture with that, how there are 3 circles around Lord Chaitanya, and in the big crowds in Puris there would be 3 circles. So there are also 3 circles around Prabhupada. The external circle of people who are just somehow or other getting in touch with this movement, but who are not really taking up the process. Then the middle circle of those who take up the process. And then the inner circle of those who are really trying to be Prabhupada's instrument. So yes, that inner circle of people is what we are looking for. That inner circle of people is really, they are the ones that are going to make the difference. As we are preaching in the world, we hope to attract some people to the inner circle, which is dedicated to pushing on Prabhupada's mission and at great effort. But that is not automatic. That really takes serious work, but it is needed. We need men, we need women to take that and to somehow or other push forward Krishna consciousness. How? That depends. That depends how they can do. Different devotees, they served in different ways. But Prabhupada was orchestrating everything to push forward this movement. For that, he was ready to travel all over the world. Continue reading. Like Hanuman soaring over the gulf, he goes from nation to nation, Moscow to Paris, non-stop to LA, with the rescue message of Lord Chaitanya. He carries his white attaché in complete faith. He carries the mission of his Guru Maharaj. The plain, hard metal, jet-driven Prabhupada, soft and compassionate. A deep, bright, burning light in his eyes, the knowledge of the Vaishnava, of one who sees him. His only companions are very young, untrained men. He remains silent for hours and sometimes talks with them about Krishna. A scientist can build this plane, he says, and keep it airborne. Why don't they admit there must be a supreme scientist who keeps the planets afloat? Always seeing Krishna everywhere. And just, it is like when we read the books, that gradually we begin to see the world through the books, and that we begin to see how Krishna is doing everything. And Prabhupada gave a Krishna conscious purport. Oh yes, this plane is floating in the sky. Look what these scientists can do. But what is the plane compared to a planet, which Krishna is floating in the sky? He reads his own book. He says Krishna wrote it, and sometimes he places it in the pocket in front of his seat and closes his eyes and looks out the window. If he didn't use airplanes, they would have no worth at all. But now that the bona fide preacher can soar like Hanuman over clouds from Paris to Los Angeles, the machine is justified. His cane beside him, his saintly form clothed in wrinkled saffron silk, he wears a wool sweater and keeps his hand in his bead bag. He thinks of many places and sometimes asks his secretary, what about the books for the life members? What are the devotees doing in Delhi? He recalls Moscow. No proper food, but the people seemed good, and that one boy was eager to learn. Prabhupada is alive with his plans because he travels, but ISKCON is awake and well. Because of faith in Srila Prabhupada. And that faith in Srila Prabhupada is something that we should still have, because it's really Prabhupada who is the living proof of Krishna consciousness. Right? There's no doubt about it. Prabhupada is seeing Krishna. Prabhupada is with Krishna completely as one of his eternal associates. So it is Prabhupada who can actually, he can actually give us that that conviction that it's all true. Who else can? Who else can say it's all true? Who has seen Krishna? But we have the land map argument. The land map argument, which is that if you travel by a map, and the map is good for the first 100 kilometers, then from that point on, you start to rely more on the map and have faith in the map. And this is a good map, right? Even if you haven't traveled the whole map, still you rely on the map. So we may not have traveled the entire map of Krishna consciousness, but still we have faith because we've traveled part of the way. And in this way, our faith is growing and becoming stronger. But all of us have that faith that Prabhupada is the person who has realized Krishna consciousness to the fullest extent. We have heard about the diamond tear in Prabhupada's eyes, that Prabhupada was giving a lecture, and that during the lecture, he just became stunned. He was just frozen. And then this tear, which looked just like a diamond in the corner of his eye. And everyone saw it. Everyone saw the diamond in Prabhupada's eye. Yes, there was no doubt that Prabhupada was an extraordinary self-realized soul. And if you have any doubt, there is that story about a photographer taking pictures of Prabhupada and using a flash. And that Prabhupada at one point was tired of these lights all the time in his in his eyes, and then he said, no more balls, because seeing all these light balls. So then the photographer, who was professional, got a slow film, which is very sensitive to light, but also very sensitive to movement. So he put the camera on a tripod, and because it was not yet a computerized digital camera, but film, it was based on, one had to manually set the lens and manually set the settings for sensitivity to light. So he was using, the photographer was using a light meter, and he had a cord, an extension cord of the camera, and he's clicking away with his hand like that, different pictures while he's looking at the light meter. And suddenly the light meter went up. The needle went right up. I said, did someone turn on the light? No, it was Prabhupada, who was beaming with happiness, measured, and it was a German light meter. So that must be good then. So in this way, we can appreciate that hard scientific evidence. It's been measured. Prabhupada's Krishna Prem has been measured. So this Krishna Prem was all along the driving force. Even if he acted as a preacher, as a Madhyam Adhikari who makes distinctions between devotees and demons, right? Instead of seeing everything is fine, everyone is getting Krishna's mercy. But Prabhupada was eager to accelerate the destiny of all the living beings on the planet, and to somehow or other put them in the fast lane back to Godhead. And yes, so he was doing. June 26, 1971. Why were they so beautifully happy? People couldn't understand. But when one knows he had been on the verge of death, but his eternal Father came to save him, naturally loves him and worships his lotus feet and becomes happy. He's coming from Krishna, and his airport arrival is not merely official, nor is there emotion, as they suddenly cry to see him. Every person, clever or dull, who had no such shelter is unspeakably doomed. They don't even know. Naturally, the devotees want to honor him. They just want to hold kirtan in his presence for a few days and feel the flood of enthusiasm and the solidification that comes when he speaks the science of God. In the temple in Detroit, seated behind the large deity of Jagannatha, he chants and looks about the temple room. He's chanting in America, ecstasy. He cites that success of Bhagavandas. What is his credit? He's doing what I instruct. These boys actually worship you, says a mother, incredulous and wanting Prabhupada to know, in case he doesn't, to what extreme the admiration goes. Yes, says Srila Prabhupada, that is our system. I'm also worshipping my Guru Maharaj. They accept him, not by his sentiment, but it is a fact. He is a pure devotee and can rescue anyone from the cycle of birth and death. Yes, so like this, we have the greatest gift. We have the greatest gift. Okay, give me 1 second, dear devotees, because here's the devotee who's saying goodbye. He just came in the room and he's offering obeisances and he's offering me a donation. So, Brahmananda, I thank you. Huh? ठीक है तो फिर मिलेंगे ठीक है पक्का हरे कृष्णा जरूर फिर मिलेंगे पक्का Radhastami. Okay, he'll come back for Radhastami. Yeah, that is also Prabhupada, that so many people now have come. The movement has changed, because one thing that did change is that now there's a congregation, right? That was not there in these earlier days. In these earlier days, there were devotees, and they came forward and they just joined Prabhupada and were close to Prabhupada, and they would give up everything. It meant if you join the Hare Krishna movement, you give up everything. You give up your house, you give up your bank account, you give up your car, you give up all your possessions, everything, and you move in a temple. That's how it used to be. And of course, now it is a movement of married people. So many householders who are having houses, who are living in their own world and have everything. But Prabhupada attracted young people who were in that way free. And they were free to serve and free to give everything and free to give all their time. And that is how miracles were done. Because right now I'm in Radhadesh, and there's a big castle here. And if today we would have to collect the money to get that castle, that would be quite difficult, because now we are not so focused. Now we are not all together. Now we're not all together thinking about what can we do for Prabhupada. But in those days, everyone was behind one goal, one movement, one goal, one movement, one activity, preaching. So things have changed now. Now, one movement, big congregation, so many different interests. But the question remains, who steps into the inner circle? Who is ready to somehow or other take the lead? Yes. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. It is unfortunate that others cannot accept him, understandable, but unfortunate. Yes, so many people are missing out on this transcendental knowledge, somehow or other. They cannot understand. But we can make a difference. A book can make a difference, yes. Or via the internet, it can make a difference, somehow or other. Or even friends with a neighbor, a friendly neighbor. Just now, I got a message and they say, oh, we have a friendly neighbor, and we gave him some cake from Jamastami, which was baked for Jamastami. And he said, oh, whose birthday? And he said, oh, of a friend of ours. Yes, of that friend of ours. So they gave him the cake, and there you go. So let there be cake, right? Let there be some prasadam. Anybody can do that. We can all give some prasadam. Yes, so it's not that no one has an excuse and say, well, I'm in a position I can't do anything. No, we all can. And it must be. Because that's how we purchase the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the mercy of Prabhupada. And my mercy also, if that's what you want. It's available for the same price. Yes. Okay, let's move a little bit forward in the text. Let's see where we go. We're in Vrindavan. 1973. Why such delay, you asked? Just pick a competent engineer and design a temple with some of the features of Govinda Mandir. Worship the two brothers, Krishna Balaram, right in Ramaniti, sense of Turkey. Even today, cuckoos, parrots, and peacocks, atmosphere of songs. Their confidential pastimes will become an open secret. That is their desire. Let people come and see in a gorgeous temple the Supreme Person, Krishna, and his brother Balaram. Brajendra Nandanye Sachi Sutta Haila Se Balaram Holanitai and Balaram, the son of Nanda Maharaj, have advantaged themselves as Gaur Nitai. Let people come and learn these open secrets, but get it going. Guru Das, now your man in charge, gave an optimistic promise. The temple would open by Janmashtami 1973. Well, that didn't happen. Not even by Janmashtami 1974. That didn't happen. But it did happen at Ram Navami 1975. Real obstacles, the cash flow, the unwieldy workers, the torturous heat, and the incredible saga of obtaining steel and cement made it impossible to open on time. All right, you said, just make my room ready so I can come and push. But next year, by Janmashtami 74, you must definitely open. Yes. Anyhow, somehow or other, Prabhupada knew that when people become Krishna conscious, when they find out about Krishna, they will also find out about Vrindavan. And naturally, they will all come to Vrindavan. It's just a matter of time. And there must be a place for all these devotees to come, right? A place where they can gather. So Prabhupada wanted a temple in Vrindavan. And of course, now we are talking about not only one temple. Now we say we need many temples in Vrindavan. Many temples, because everyone who's touched by Krishna consciousness will go to Vrindavan. I'm sure that all of you who are here now on this Zoom call will also either have been in Vrindavan or will go to Vrindavan, because that's Prabhupada's gift to us. Prabhupada gave us Vrindavan. Without Prabhupada, we had no business in Vrindavan. Sometimes I've thought like that, here I am, someone from Western Europe, right? And where everyone is wealthy, where things are clean, and you go to some small, tiny little holy place, and there's nothing much there, It's just a little shed, really, and you wonder, like, what are we doing here? Why are we here? But we are only here because Om Jnana Timirandasya, because our eyes have been opened. We see Krishna now. And then a little simple shed. Yes. Now that is desirable. Krishna. So this is the mercy that we're receiving. We're receiving the gift of Vrindavan. That gift of Vrindavan is very precious. That gift of Vrindavan is precious because in Vrindavan, Krishna consciousness is very natural. Everyone in Vrindavan is a devotee of Krishna, and therefore everyone wants to remember Krishna. Therefore everyone is eager to preserve the places related to Krishna, and therefore Vrindavan is filled with such memories wherever we go. Just there is the Krishna Balaram tree. Even although now there's only one tree, it used to be two trees, a white tree on top of a black tree, the Krishna Balaram tree. Now there's no more white tree. But it used to be two trees together. I've seen many times. But the place is still there, and we still remember. We still remember Krishna and Balaram on Raman Reti in Vrindavan. So this is our good fortune. Our good fortune. So Prabhupada gave us all this Vrindavan. Vrindavan nourishes us. Vrindavan sustains us. Vrindavan is one of the 5 principal limbs of bhakti. Vrindavan will bring us inspiration and enthusiasm. We need Vrindavan. Prabhupada gave us all these gifts. He gave us Shrimad Bhagavatam. And this Shrimad Bhagavatam, I read yesterday this beautiful quote to you, I think, but in case, or not to you, on another forum, but I'll read it again. Just takes me a moment to locate it. Where are we? Oh, where is the quotes? Oh, here. Quotes, and now we have to go a bit further. But, yeah. Okay. As well, according to the Gita, the Lord comes to save the devotees and destroy the demons. Bhagavad Gita 4:8. Just as he appears for these purposes as Matsya among the fish, as Varaha among the animals, as Hansa among the birds, as Swayam Bhagavan Krishna among the humans, and as Upendra among the Devatas, so the Lord has now appeared as the crown jewel of the scriptures, Shrimad Bhagavatam, among the Vedas, for restoring Dharma and delivering the devotees. So we hear how the Lord appears in many different forms and species. And we hear that the Lord is appearing amongst the aquatics, amongst the animals, amongst human beings, amongst the demigods, and he also appears amongst the Vedas. And this time he appears as Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is Prabhupada's principal literary contribution. The Srimad Bhagavatam, amongst all the Vedic literatures, is the unique literature that points us towards Krishna. And Prabhupada has done so much to spread the fame of Srimad Bhagavatam. Who knew about Srimad Bhagavatam? I never heard of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, although I had read in Vedic literatures before. I knew about Upanishads, I knew about the Mahabharata, I knew about the Ramayana, right? And that there was something like Puranas, but that was about it. I never knew about Srimad Bhagavatam. But now we know that this is the Amalam Puranam Yad Vaishnavam Priyam. So Prabhupada, this is Prabhupada's main work. Prabhupada translated so many books. In altogether, maybe some 65 books, and then smaller publications. Altogether, if you count everything, even that is like under the copyright of BBT, then it is like 90 titles, right? And that was all Prabhupada's work. And but out of all of them, Bhagavatam is foremost. So he gave us that gift of Srimad Bhagavatam, very much so, very much so. And then he even said, and my biggest complaint is that my disciples are not reading my books. And that, of course, that complaint extends beyond his disciples. And that is also something for us. Are we reading Srimad Bhagavatam? And if not, why not? We should. So Prabhupada gave us many, many gifts. He gave us temples to go to. Right now, some people are in situations where they cannot go to temples due to lockdown, and they feel the withdrawal symptoms, the separation from the temple. If only we could go to the temple. Oh, I missed the temple. Janmashtami, the temple. No big kirtans, no big festivals, no big Rath Yatras. Prabhupada gave it all to us. He gave us the festivals. He gave us the temples. He gave us the Rath Yatras. And all these things are nourishing us, sustaining us. That is just very wonderful. Yes. And Prabhupada established the Hare Krishna movement. Initially, an underground movement sort of, the hippie days were there, and there were so many far out, eccentric people dressed in, yeah, okay, dressed in all kinds of clothes. And then, so devotees didn't stand out that much, right? They were part of the exotic landscape, and certainly on the exotic side, but not too awkward. Clearly, another manifestation of the whole underground movement. This thing about the underground movement was a big thing in the 60s. There were all these things going on underground. Underground started maybe from people smoking marijuana, which was illegal, but there were all kinds of underground information about prices and where you could buy and so on. So that's where the concept of underground came from, the underground movement. But gradually, the term underground movement became the term for the whole phenomena of young people looking for an alternative to mainstream society. And the Hare Krishnas were that. And they were very idealistic. They wanted to provide an alternative to mainstream society. At the moment, this spirit of providing an alternative to mainstream society is not as strong anymore in people's mind in general as it was in the 60s and 70s. But the Hare Krishna movement is still that. It is still meant to provide that alternative to mainstream society. And Prabhupada had to face opposition, and he was ready. He was ready. And one of the things he established was the Yukta Vairagya philosophy of Lord Chaitanya. That Yukta Vairagya philosophy is very important because that makes things practical. If there's no Yukta Vairagya, it is very complicated to practice Krishna consciousness in the modern world because then you cannot deal with the modern world. Because we are surrounded by a world of Maya. So how can one then deal with all these things? So then one has to live on the edge of society. But Yukta Vairagya makes it possible to live in the middle of society and to use everything of society. And Prabhupada was totally into this Yukta Vairagya. Yukta means to connect, and Vairagya means renunciation, and we see both. We see for Krishna, Prabhupada would connect everything. For himself, Prabhupada was very, very simple, living simple, preferred to live simple. But then, yes, they would receive him. The reporters were not concerned to waste time hearing the Vedas. They were more interested in the Swami's expensive gold watch. And they wrote down snide notes about the adoring nature. Prabhupada's disciples like flies looking for a sword. The old man they saw, the retired businessman from India. And when at their request spoke about women, then suddenly they had their story. The Swami was a male chauvinist. Somehow or other. Put him in a box. Somehow or other. But Prabhupada was on another level. Prabhupada was full of love. Prabhupada was full of mercy. Prabhupada accepted the golden watch as an offering, but he had no interest in a watch. And he would also give them away. When someone gave Prabhupada a watch, Prabhupada had a nice watch. And then there was a devotee who got himself an expensive watch, and he gave it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada gave him the other watch. And then they would sometimes talk about watches. And then Prabhupada would complain. He said, "Your watch is sometimes running late." Prabhupada didn't care what the brand was, whether it was gold. He wanted a watch to tell the time. Nowadays, we have watches to tell you everything. Right? They tell you your heartbeat, they tell you everything. But, ultimately, look, we have a watch to know the time. Right? I was walking up the hill here the other day with someone who was measuring his heartbeat while we were going up the hill, right, on his watch. Well, I didn't need a watch for that. I felt it. I felt the heart beating in my chest, So I don't need to count. I can feel it, right? That, okay, I have sensors already. I don't need such a watch. So Prabhupada also didn't need such things. They couldn't see that he was simple, that there was yukta vairagya. They could see the yukta. They saw the golden watch. They saw a Rolls Royce, but they did not see that he was totally detached and that he was actually renounced. And one journalist said, "Oh, you've come in a Mercedes." And Prabhupada said, yes. And you can also have, but you must give up sex life. Is one ready to pay? So yes, he gave that up. He gave up sense gratification. He gave up any material form of enjoyment. Prabhupada simply was always absorbed, either absorbed in his mission or just absorbed in remembering Krishna, absorbed in hearing and chanting. So I'm coming to the end of this lecture. This lecture is not so focused on a particular angle. In the morning, I did a lecture where I established Srila Prabhupada as a Shakti Avesh avatar. And in the morning, I did a clear lecture to establish Prabhupada. It is still can be found on Mayapur TV in Radhadesh on the archive section. I'll try and get these lectures and put them on my YouTube channel, mediakadambakananswami.com, so that they will be there. But the point is that, yes, Prabhupada was a Shakti Avesh avatar, specially empowered to fulfill the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes, Prabhupada is our shortcut when it comes to faith. And ultimately, all of us need to develop a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, right? It is important that we get to know him better, that we get to understand him better, because that relationship will sustain us, and the day will come that we need that at times of struggle. So let us certainly worship Srila Prabhupada and remember Srila Prabhupada. And that is what we're doing now. This talk was simply about remembering Srila Prabhupada and some of his qualities. So if there are any questions, I can try to answer some. And then at 5 o'clock, I'll take a break. I have to meet someone. And then after that, I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock that's my time, Brussels time, in mediakadambakananswami.com. And you are welcome.
And Maharaj, we have one question here in the temple in Berlin. Dr. Shubhi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yes.
Maharaj, currently one Mataji, Olivia Mataji, she gifted me one book on Prabhupada written by Satswarup Das Goswami, and I am reading it and I am falling in love with Prabhupada more and more. And you have associated Prabhupada personally, so I have a question for you, that which qualities was there that you was amazed to take him as your spiritual master?
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, Srila Prabhupada is not my spiritual master, and I joined ISKCON just after Srila Prabhupada had left the planet. So in that way, I didn't meet Srila Prabhupada then, but so I met Srila Prabhupada in his books, and his books became that began to convince me. As I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, I had been in India, and I knew I'd been in India not just a little bit, but I'd spent quite some time in India. So then I came across Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and as I read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, that Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada was systematically explaining the Gita, and then he took it a step further to the conclusion, and therefore you have to surrender. Again and again, he just emphasized this point, and then you have to surrender. So yes, that was first after logically explaining it. And at one point, he brought me to a point where I could not consider myself sincere anymore, you know, if I was not actually taking up Krishna consciousness. And I was thinking of myself as sincere. So I had to admit that if I didn't surrender, that I wouldn't be sincere. So in this way, he trapped me. He trapped me. He first made it very clear why one should surrender, based on the arguments of the Gita, based on logic, then that we should do it. And if one wouldn't do it, yeah, then one basically wasn't sincere. And I couldn't live with myself not being sincere. And in this way, I was forced. I was forced to take up, this Krishna consciousness by Prabhupada's mercy. And in the same way, anybody today is not excluded. It's not that only at the time when Srila Prabhupada was personally, something happened. Am I still online? I think I got thrown out.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you're still online.
Yeah, okay, but I can't see me anymore. Something, 1 sec, I have to come back. Where am I? Okay, I lost my screen and I don't know how to bring it back, but that's okay. I can do it without the screen for a moment. No. I'm trying, but not working. Try here? No. Gosh. No. Nothing. No. Okay. View. Show. No. I don't know what happens. Somehow or other, it disappeared off my screen. Okay, I got you back. Phew. That was some serious, some little high-tech stuff. All right, so any other question?
We have more questions here in the temple.
No, that's okay. You can have all the questions in the temple.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question. You told us about the spirit of ISKCON in 60s and 70s, that this was a special atmosphere. And how can we improve, especially in this situation, this atmosphere when people not allowed visit the temple, and the preaching is also difficult, Harinam, that maybe can you share?
Yeah,
your experience. Thank you.
that was Prabhupada's unique quality, that he was always able, he was flexible, you know, and he was flexible, and he wasn't trying to preach in a stereotyped way. He was ready to adjust to the circumstances and just preach to, in a way, whatever the circumstances allowed. In Moscow, he couldn't give the lecture, but he preached in his hotel room. So somehow or other, there's always a way. And as you can see, we are now on Zoom, and that also is a way to connect. Maybe now is not a time to meet thousands of people, but maybe now is the time to write something. Right? You could write, you could write a small book to begin, and just a small book about, your Krishna consciousness, how it all happened, your story, right? And everybody, we can write a big book if everyone writes his story, and then Namarupa, who is online, can make it all in an ebook, because she is professional at making ebooks. So we can all send her our story, and before you know it, we have here, let's see, 25 boxes, and there's 50 people here today. 50 people. So 50 people can actually write a story, and that would be a book. So we can do many things now. So I think one need not worry. We have to get out of our stereotype idea of what Krishna consciousness is. When the devotees were in early Russia, were put in jails and labor camps and so on, some of them knew Morse code, and they were in the jail, and they were using a spoon, and they were like ticking on the heating tubes, and they were by Morse code ticking the Mahamantra. And in this way, they were sent the Mahamantra into the jail. And then a question came back: what is this? And then tick, 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 must be a lot of ticking the Mahamantra. But in this way, it's the old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. That is very nice.
Yeah, we have one more question here.
The thing is this, I have an appointment.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have to go. But I appreciate having spent a little time with you on this afternoon. And I hope you had a very nice Jamastami, and it's very nice to see you all. I wish you all a very, very nice time. And we are here this afternoon because the Berlin Temple is hosting us. So thank you very much, Berlin Temple. We see some devotees in the Berlin Temple, and I'm very happy to see you all. I can't see who's in the back, but I can see who's in the middle. So no, it's not to block them. They're just too far away. I can't see. But I can see the devotees in the middle. So that is very nice. So thank you for hosting us. And I wish you, a good rest after all these festivals. I am like, I mean, I've come to a point where the word feast, I can no longer hear it. Help. I'm ready for a peaceful day. A nice, quiet, peaceful morning, please, tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward. So thank you. And we wish you we can still do many things today and watch videos on Srila Prabhupada. We can just focus on Srila Prabhupada somehow or other. Let us not say the day is over. But let us continue and go on in remembering Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.